So there Ron was, standing smack dab in the middle of his ruined home. His family? Gone. Just like that. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was deafening, way louder than any shouting match. It was a silence that screamed, "You're all alone now, kiddo." And yeah, he was, just 10 years old and totally on his own. Talk about a gut punch. He stood there for what felt like forever, the cold creeping back in, not just from the empty house, but from inside him too. What was he supposed to do? Stay here? No way. This place was just a giant reminder of all the bad stuff, all the blame, all the feeling unwanted. He had to go. But where? His mind immediately jumped to the forest, the one he'd always dreamed about, the one that promised a world beyond his miserable village. It felt like the only option, the only escape. But then a soft meow broke through the quiet. And there she was, Mona, his scruffy calico cat, rubbing against his leg, purring like a tiny engine. Mona was his everything, seriously. She was the only one who'd ever given him any real comfort, just sitting on his lap, purring away, making him feel a little less invisible. She was his secret keeper, his silent listener, the one fuzzy spot of warmth in a life full of cold shoulders. He couldn't just leave her to fend for herself. No way. He scooped her up, burying his face in her soft fur. He had to make sure she was safe. And there was only one person he trusted enough, Dilan, his best friend. Dilan lived just a few cottages down, and his family was, well, normal, kind. He knew Dilan would take good care of Mona. So, with Mona tucked carefully in his arms, Ron headed out. The village still looked like a disaster zone, mud everywhere, but he barely noticed. He just walked straight to Dilan's door and knocked, his heart doing a nervous little jig. Dilan opened the door, his eyes wide when he saw Ron and Mona. "Ron, what happened? Where's your family?" Ron just shook his head, trying to keep his voice steady. "They left. Both of them. They didn't want me." He swallowed hard, that familiar ache starting up again. "I'm going to the forest, Dilan. I need you to take care of Mona for me." Dylan's jaw practically hit the floor. "The forest? Are you crazy, Ron? My dad says that place is super dangerous. He travels through it all the time for trade, and he's told me stories. There are wild animals, tricky paths, and, well, bad things happen out there." Dylan's voice was full of shock and worry, and he looked genuinely scared for Ron. "You can't just go into the forest alone. You're only 10. "I have to, Dilan," Ron insisted, his voice firm, even though his insides were shaking. "There's nothing left for me here, nowhere to go. I can't stay." He knew Dilan was right, knew it was a crazy idea, but the thought of staying in Morinak was even worse. Dilan tried everything. He pleaded, he reasoned, he probably even tried to guilt-trip Ron a little, but Ron just wouldn't budge. He had made up his mind. After a long, tense moment, Dilan finally sighed, a heavy, defeated sound. He knew Ron well enough to know when his mind was set. "Okay, Ron," Dilan said, his voice quiet, filled with a mix of sadness and deep concern. "I'll take care of Mona, I promise. But please be careful, okay? Really, really careful." He reached out and awkwardly patted Ron's shoulder, a rare gesture of comfort. Ron nodded, trying to smile, but it felt wobbly. He handed Mona over, and the little cat let out a plaintive meow as Dilan took her. "Thanks, Dilan. You're the best friend anyone could ask for." He took one last look at Mona, her green eyes wide and innocent, and then at Dilan, whose face was a mix of shock, sadness, and deep, deep worry. It was a look that would stick with Ron for a long, long time. Then, without another word, Ron turned and walked away. He didn't look back. He just kept walking, away from the ruined village, away from the last shred of his old life, and straight towards the dark, looming edge of the forest. He stepped under the dense canopy of trees, the sunlight immediately dimming, the air growing colder and eerily quiet. His journey had truly begun, and almost immediately it was clear Dilan's warnings weren't just stories. The path was treacherous, the shadows seemed to twist and move, and the forest quickly became a place of miserable conditions and almost deadly events, testing Ron with every single step. This wasn't going to be easy, not by a long shot.